It's yet another matchup for the ages. The US's premier Special Operations Force versus the infamous nighttime stalker and dream killer in the fashionably retro sweater and fedora, Freddy Krueger. When Freddy comes looking to score some nighttime kills on innocent Americans, it's the US SEALs coming to the rescue. But who would actually win a showdown between one of the greatest horror villains of all time and a squad of the finest fighting men to ever walk the earth? In our blue corner is the squad of Navy SEAL operators, arguably the best special forces in the world. Whether it's fighting terrorists in Afghanistan or taking on aliens in space, when you've got a big baddie in either real life or fiction, SEALs are usually who you're thinking of to come to the rescue. Real SEALs are divided up between 8 teams, with each team comprising 6 platoons of 16 SEALs each. This makes SEALs one of the largest special operations forces in the world, seeing rapid expansion during the Cold War when they were expected to take on some of the toughest and most critical missions against Soviet bloc assets. If World War III had kicked off during the icy decades of the Cold War, you can bet that some of the finest attacks would have been carried out by American SEALs against extremely high-value and sensitive Soviet targets. On their individual level, SEALs are amongst the best trained soldiers in the world, and much like their British SAS counterparts, they're taught to be able to utilize any firearm they may encounter on any battlefield. This ensures that even when their own rifle is lost or no longer useful, a SEAL can carry on the fight using the enemy's own weapons if need be. Exactly what equipment a SEAL will carry into battle depends on the battle to be fought though, with even the specific rifle to be used coming down to what the mission is and where it's taking place. SEAL snipers, for example, could have up to 8 different rifles to be used in different conditions, battlefields, and mission types. For instance, SEALs involved in an operation to secure a target inside of an apartment building will likely be equipped with a shorter barrel weapon to aid them in such close quarters, and favor a .45 caliber round with a lot more stopping power at shorter ranges over a traditional .556 round with greater accuracy at longer ranges. Mission dictates equipment for a SEAL, in effect making them the battlefield specialists, akin to a surgeon on an operating table. Only the prescription is death. SEALs also have access to the world's largest black operations budget, which means that they get all the best and coolest toys. These toys include cutting-edge thermal vision goggles capable of penetrating very thin walls, radio frequency identifiers to track down an enemy's radio signals, and drones of all kinds. Miniature drones the size of insects can be used to identify enemies inside a complex urban structure, while larger drones can be dispatched from vehicles or even launched by soldiers themselves to monitor an area from above. Air Force Predator drones can also provide complete eye-in-the-sky situational awareness, beaming down infrared night vision or color picture images on demand to operators on the ground. As masters of improvised warfare though, an unarmed SEAL is not a defeated SEAL. And even without weapons or fancy equipment, SEALs can make life a living hell for the enemy. Every SEAL is a trained demolitionist and capable of constructing IEDs with commonly available materials on either a battlefield or a home. Expert hand-to-hand fighters, SEALs are also trained in various martial arts, with techniques designed to either kill or incapacitate. In fact, after the war in Iraq and Afghanistan began, U.S. military martial arts programs had to be redesigned as they simply presented too few non-lethal options for subduing a foe. With the world's strongest military at their backs and plenty of high-end weaponry and fancy gadgets, SEALs are a force to be reckoned with. But how could they cope with the original dream killer himself? Freddy needs no introduction. He's been haunting our nightmares since the 80s when he made the leap from Wes Craven's fertile imagination to the big screen. Since then, he's been slashing teenagers and nosy stepdads alike, but also taking on other big screen horror villains like Jason. Freddy survived them all though, probably because he can't ever truly die. Instead, Freddy's often temporarily defeated and must carefully work to cultivate nightmares in people so he can feed off their fears and return to stalk more victims in the world of the living. Freddy's primary armament is his infamous glove stuffed full of razor blades, an impractical weapon in the hands of anyone but a supernatural dream stalker. Freddy is strong enough to push those razor-sharp blades through a few inches of plywood, and given enough time could even slash his way through a regular home doorway. This clearly shows Freddy doesn't have superhuman strength, but he is stronger than the average human, averaging out somewhere around peak human physical fitness but not truly surpassing it. Freddy's greatest power, however, comes from his ability to seamlessly transition between the real world and the dream world, making him an extremely elusive adversary. Just when you think you got Freddy cornered, he can leap through a mirror or otherwise disappear from reality and escape to the dream world where he can plot his revenge. However, as incredible an ability this is, there's one serious catch in Freddy's supernatural powers. They don't work very well if nobody's afraid of him. Like many evil supernatural beings, Freddy is fueled by fear. The more of it his victim experiences, the stronger he becomes. Unlike other supernatural villains, though, other people's fear of him can power him to hurt other people who themselves aren't afraid of him. In The Dream Master, we can see this happen when Debbie tells Freddy she isn't afraid of him, and while it's true that she isn't, others have already powered Freddy up, giving him the power he needs to kill Debbie. But if an individual is especially fearless enough, Freddy is completely powerless against them. These individuals can even have the power to banish Freddy back to a special part of the dream world where he can't hurt people anymore until he can slowly cultivate fear through dreams again in others. Unfortunately for Freddy, he's going up against some of the most fearless men in the world. Nobody is ever truly fearless, unless they have some sort of brain damage or a severe psychopathic disorder. Navy SEALs may be brave, but they're certainly not fearless, as any of them will admit. However, SEALs train themselves to not just suppress their fears, but to actually thrive in the throes of that fear, and they have developed techniques to do so. One of the most prominent techniques for overcoming fear that SEALs utilize is pre-visualization. In this fear training, an individual will move themselves to a quiet place and meditate silently to themselves on every possible thing that could go wrong in any given scenario. By rehearsing their own reactions and realistically visualizing every disaster that could befall a SEAL in combat, they're less affected when the worst comes to pass. With enough pre-visualization practice, a SEAL will already have simulated the disaster so many times that they have in effect conditioned themselves to the fear response, greatly lowering its effect. Another extremely effective technique for combating fear used by SEALs is fear conditioning, or as it's known in the psychological community, exposure therapy. By gradually exposing themselves to things that are terrifying, people can better work to suppress their fears of those things. But obviously a SEAL can't practice exposure therapy with Freddy, or they'll be dead in their first encounter. However, with some of the most difficult and dangerous training and missions in the world, veteran SEALs will have experienced so many terrifying things that, as a fringe benefit, their fear of new terrifying experiences is dramatically reduced. SEALs may be helpless to physically defeat Freddy. After all, we're talking about a dream killer who can be blown up, torn apart, have his head cut off, and even drowned and still come back minutes later for round 2. Freddy is in effect immortal, and thus even superior SEAL firepower is going to do little to stop Freddy. However, with Zen-like mastery of their fear response, a veteran team of SEALs will provide very little psychic energy for Freddy to feed off and fuel his powers with. The normally fearsome Freddy with his gauntlet stuffed full of foot-long razor claws will be as helpless as a mewing, declawed kitten if he can't get enough fear juice to do anything to physically harm our SEALs. And since most of his power comes from his supernatural abilities, and Freddy is really no stronger than a peak physically fit human, we really doubt that a fearless Freddy is going to want to go toe-to-toe with 8 highly trained martial artist SEALs. We're giving this win to the SEALs. But while they won this fight, Freddy can never truly be defeated. And with his penchant for violence, we hope that our SEALs' descendants grow up to be just as fearless as their fathers, because Freddy always comes back, eventually. Now go check out You vs. a Xenomorph and see how you'd match up against a space monster, or click this other video instead.